If you've always lived this way, you have no idea what life can be like. It's not part of your frame of reference.
Just the sound of your voice turning out.
Now, a lot of people will say, well, I eat sugar all the time and, you know, I'm perfectly fine. Well, what they don't understand is that they eat sugar all the time and they're fuzzy and their mind is cloudy all the time.
Goes a long way.
Sugar has now become so deeply ingrained into the fabric of our society that some people can't imagine life without it.
Let's say we took away added sugar. Well, then what are people going to do to get that same feeling in their life that sugar gave them in terms of their values and preferences?
But we forget that we didn't always live like this.
Society has changed. 200 years ago, there was not a society in the world when they had a festival that was basing what they ate and what they drank on sugar.
Today, it has become synonymous with any celebration. But more profoundly, it is one of the simplest ways we communicate love.
I think the reason that sugar has become so ingrained is that it actually evokes love. Our brains respond to the chemical effect the same way we respond to love.
If we're feeling upset, what do? We have some sugar. Oh, I feel better. There's not enough sweetness in our life, not enough love. Oh, I'll just have some chocolate.
With sugar having such complex associations with our hearts, minds and bodies, I wonder if it is having far greater ramifications for the culture than we've considered.
Rudolf Steiner said that sugar essentially causes materialism, and that development of the sugar metabolism and the sugar drug culture developed a materialistic culture.
We live in a time of instant gratification. Nobody wants to wait for anything. What's sugar? Quick energy, straight to the brain.
Hi, darling. Oh my God, look at this. Dude, how you going there, dude? Massive.
How big's mine too? Look at that.
Oh, let's do it.
After 60 days and 2,360 teaspoons of sugar, it was time for the last meal. I thought it would be fitting to cram all the remaining 40 teaspoons into items that could be found in a child's school lunchbox. One week later, after having all my blood tests done, I assembled the team to hear the final verdict on what sugar had done to my body. The obvious place to start is the liver. A key marker for determining liver health is a hormone called ALT. In the first month alone, mine jumped from 20 below the safety line to 20 above the safety line.
So it took you from, say, the best 20% of the men to the worst 10%
In 1 month.
in 1 month.
fatty liver is the first step towards insulin resistance. So once you're on an insulin resistance pathway, then you're on a pathway towards type 2 diabetes and then ultimately insulin-dependent type 2 diabetes. Today in Australia, 9 people had a limb amputated to that disease.
My triglyceride levels, which is the fat in the blood, went from a healthy 0.08 to 1.5.
So you'd hit the risk point.
Gee whiz.
In 2 months of healthy eating.
Healthy eating.
High triglycerides can also indicate a switch from healthy cholesterol to the damaging small dense LDL cholesterol.
Small dense LDL lines you up for heart disease because they're the ones that are embedding in the arterial walls, forming plaques, and that's the bit you don't want.
Yeah.
Have all the LDL you like, but don't have those.
Yeah.
In terms of weight, I gained 8.5 kilograms overall and added 7% to my total body fat. But more ominously, increased my waist measurement by 10 centimetres. This is the dangerous visceral fat. I showed a slight change in the bum expansion test, a variance in the rear flesh wings test, and had great success in the highly scientific belly slap make a fat wave wobble test.
I was quite, as you know, quite alarmed that you were able to do that in such a short amount of time. Again, eating hard-approved healthy foods that everyone's going along thinking, is totally fine to be doing.
And we're worried about the future of this obesity epidemic in Australia, whether it's going to lead to an epidemic of liver disease in the long term.
But perhaps the most enlightening of my results was the calorie count. As I discovered, my calorie intake was virtually the same as my pre-experiment diet. The big difference was the source of the calories. I'd pretty much done a direct swap of healthy fats for sugar-laden products.
I was looking at the total calories as well, and very often it would come out as less than what he had eaten previously. The way that calories have been measured in the past needs to be re-looked at.
This calorie counting and this intense fixation with it, and it's our fault as much as, I take responsibility because that's a message we've been spewing out for the last 30 or 40 years, but we really have to try and turn things around. And Damien is living evidence, living proof. It is not the calories, it's the source of the calories, it's where they're coming from.
I'm surprised how quickly things went downhill for you. I honestly am. To put on so much weight in just 60 days without really changing the number of calories you were eating, without eating rubbish, to have such a big effect. 10 centimetres on the waist, 8.5 kilos on the body, full-blown fatty liver disease developed, well on your way to cirrhosis, well on your way to insulin resistance. That's a disaster.
I obviously, through my research, have convinced myself that sugar is almost assuredly the problem, like the fundamental problem. You get rid of sugar and everything else becomes relatively harmless.
We would like to do the definitive study, but even if we find out next month it gets funded, it's still going to be 5 more years before I will have results. What possible risk to public health is there in people lowering their sugar consumption?
This is our problem, and we should all work together to solve it instead of pointing fingers and not being productive about that. And I would love to see the food industry come to the table with scientists and healthcare providers and do what's right.
The first week of giving up sugar wasn't a lot of fun. Frankly, it didn't feel that different from giving up cigarettes. I had headaches, I was moody, and my sleep patterns were terrible.
I just tossed and turned all night and then woke up very early, and as soon as I was awake, I am craving sugar. I feel like I need a hit. It's the first real sign of that this is going to be a bit tricky.
But I knew from previous experience that I wouldn't feel like this forever, and that ultimately it would all be worth it.
Because food and sugar has a very strong emotional component, then we have to heal ourselves emotionally. We have to go through what could be a disturbing experience or an uncomfortable or even awkward experience coming off of it.
But once you get through it, which is about 2 to 4 weeks, suddenly the desire for sugar disappears altogether.
1 month after finishing the experiment, a miracle occurred. Our daughter was born. This is her mobile, this is her teething giraffe, and this is her lunch.
Oh, yeah.
But then some other remarkable things happened. After just 2 months of cutting out sugar, my vitality had returned, my skin was brighter, and thankfully, my moods had evened out.
I've had hundreds and hundreds of people go off sugar just for the reason of clearing up their mind. And typically the result I get is, wow, I had no idea.
In terms of my weight, all I did is return to my pre-experiment diet. I swapped cereal and low-fat yogurt for bacon, eggs and avocado without toast. I snacked on nuts and cheese instead of muesli bars, and ate fish or meat with the fat left on, and lots of green vegetables for dinners. I lost 6 kilograms with minimal exercise.
Once you remove that hormone disruptor, fructose, from your diet, your appetite control works again and your weight drops.
Because I replaced sugar with healthy fats, I felt full again and didn't have to eat as much. Consequently, I spent the same amount on shopping as I had during the experiment.
Whenever you walk into a supermarket, make an immediate right turn or left turn for the produce aisle and avoid everything in the middle. Everything in the middle is a huge amount of calories with very little nutrients. And what we want to do is reverse that.
But the biggest surprise was that all of my blood tests had returned to normal. So no more heart disease risks and no more fatty liver.
I think the most important message is that this is not you get a fatty liver and that's it. It will stay fatty. It actually can be reversed very easily by taking away the fructose from your diet, taking away all those drinks. I mean, water is a good drink.
Yeah.
In truth,
Mommy's pie.
it did take a while for my palate to readjust to my lady's unsweetened cooking. Things tasted bland for the first few weeks, but then I rediscovered the full flavours of fresh produce.
For just 5 days, I want you to discontinue or take out of your diet for 5 days these foods that I'm going to show you, and I promise you that you will feel 100% better. Will you please try this for me, just as an experiment, because I'm here trying to help you. You help yourself a little bit. White sugar, candy, cake, ice cream.
In the USA, it was recently recommended for men to have no more than 9 teaspoons of sugar a day, and women no more than 6. Australia currently doesn't have an equivalent recommendation.
I love chocolate. I eat a little piece of chocolate every day, but I'm careful and I understand the adverse effects if I have too much of it.
But for me, it's simpler to cut out sugar altogether. And that means avoiding artificial sweeteners too, that keep the cravings alive.
If you continue to reinforce it has to be sweet in order for it to be good, then you're never really learning how to do food, good food.
I want my daughter to grow up healthy and happy, and not waste any of her precious time counting calories or obsessing over weight. By educating our children, perhaps they can avoid the mistakes that our generation has made.
Do whatever you can to turn fruit and vegetable into the highlight of your meal. Train your kids to love them.
That's what every parent's got to figure out. How do you get in all those great nutrients? How do you get those superfoods into your child and make it taste good at the same time without spiking their blood sugar? So that they can sit down and study and learn and allow for the creation of genius.